Should you create a hardcover version of your beautiful children's book? And if so, where should you go? Hi there, I'm Eevi, an award-winning children's author and ghostwriter over on eevijones.com and the creator of Children's Book University. I create videos specifically for children's authors, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly videos. Unlike the growing trend of other genres where many are sold as ebooks these days, children's books differ greatly from most other genres. Many parents still prefer formats that let them and their little ones turn actual pages, and that's why paperbacks and hardcovers for children's books are still selling so well to this day. I get asked quite often what formats to consider and whether or not I would recommend creating a hardcover for children's books. And so I wanted to share a number of thoughts. This will hopefully help you with the decision as to whether or not this would be a great option for your own children's book. So in this video, I will share the different formats that are available to us children's authors, which formats I would recommend and why, and the only print-on-demand platforms I would recommend for hardcovers for children's books and why. And in the end, I will also talk about some setup details that are really important to your hardcover. Now, before diving in, it's important to look at the different formats that are available to us children's authors. Offering our children's books in multiple formats will help us appeal to a number of different buyers because each serves a different purpose as well as provides a number of different price points. So let's take a quick look. First, we have ebooks. I actually made a separate video on why you may want to consider creating an ebook version of your children's book, and I will make sure to link to that in the description below this video. The ebook format is consistently growing for most other genres. Some genres even moved entirely to ebooks only, and that's because it provides lots of advantages to both the author as well as the reader. Ebooks can be accessed and read immediately after the purchase. They don't take up any space on our bookshelves, and they are usually more cost-effective. Now, one of its biggest advantages of ebooks that also applies to children's books is that it's a fantastic format to use for any promotional purposes because we can set really low pricing depending on the file size of your book, and even offer it temporarily for free if the book is enrolled into KDP Select. If you have any KDP Select questions, be sure to also watch my separate video on that as well. I will link to that in the description below. So when it comes to children's books, I recommend offering an ebook version for promotional and marketing purposes. Second, we have paperbacks. The second option available to us children's authors is the paperback. While this format's popularity is somewhat decreasing for other genres, this is by far the most often sold format for children's books, at least as of right now. Especially for younger little ones, parents still prefer to be able to turn actual pages of a book when they are reading to their children. And when it comes to pricing, paperbacks offer a wonderful option between ebooks and hardcovers. Paperbacks don't take away much shelf space, and most of us are very familiar and comfortable with this format because that's the format most often offered and sold during our kids' school book fairs. So this is a format you do not want to skip. Whether you go with hardcovers or not, be sure to offer your children's book as a paperback as well. And thirdly, we have hardcovers for children's books. Now, this is an option most authors of other genres usually don't offer unless they are traditionally published or are already well-established authors with some name recognition. And that's mainly because Amazon's KDP didn't offer a hardcover option until recently, but also because it has a much smaller profit margin. When it comes to children's books, many of us children's authors often envision our book in this and only this format. And some of the most common reasons given by many of my students and clients over in Children's Book University are these two right here. One, because of its cover, this format is often thought to be more durable. And two, many often believe hardcovers seem more appealing to buyers. I hope that by now you can see that this isn't necessarily true. The cost of a hardcover is often much higher than that of a paperback, and so we often have to attach a rather steep price tag in order to make a profit. So unless you already have a loyal following, people are very unlikely to purchase the more, or in this case, most expensive option of your children's book. So when it comes to hardcovers, my recommendation would be not to make this type of format your number one choice, especially if you've never published a children's book before. For your very first book, focus on your ebook and your paperback. Once you've learned the ropes and you feel it would be beneficial to you and your readers, you can start offering the hardcover version as well. So you don't have to publish all three formats all at once. One thing I wanted to mention here as well is that not all of my own 50 plus books have a hardcover version. Only those I think people would love to purchase as a gift. So that's something to consider and to keep in mind as well. Not all books need a hardcover version. Now, if you decide to go ahead and offer a hardcover version of your book, where should you go? What would your options be? And that's what we will dive into next. When it comes to hardcovers for children's books, we have multiple options. One such option is referred to as the offsite printing, where hardcover copies of a book are printed in bulk, usually overseas. The advantage of offsite printing is that this allows the author to have a much lower printing cost per book, which in turn allows for a greater profit margin. The other option would be your print on demand option, or POD. I personally only use POD for all of my children's books, where the books are printed one at a time after it has been ordered and paid for by a reader through a site like Amazon. My decision to use POD is primarily based on 4 reasons. The first reason is that I don't have any upfront costs, as I would have with offsite printing. With offsite printing, I would have to purchase my books in bulk to truly make it cost effective. Depending on the used overseas printer, the minimum would be between 500 and 1,000 copies, which I would have to pay for upfront. Pod printing, however, requires no upfront investment because, again, the books won't be printed until an actual order, for example via Amazon, has been placed. All printing, handling fees, and shipping costs are then automatically deducted from my book's selling price. The second reason for me to have gone the pod route is that storage and shipping and handling is taken care of, so I don't have to worry about any of this. And the third reason I'm using a pod service is that I don't have to worry about returns because the pod takes care of these eventualities for me as well. And the fourth and final reason for me to go the pod route instead of the offsite printing is because I currently have over 50 books. So if I were to use offsite printing, I would have to purchase 500 copies of each upfront out of pocket to always have them on hand, and I would have to pay for storage somewhere as well. Now, whether you use offsite printing or pod is of course entirely up to you, and there is no right or wrong. There are certainly a number of authors that prefer to print their books offsite, but it's always associated with a certain level of risk. What matters most is what works best for you, your budget, and the time you're able to allocate to selling your books. I have created a short list of the advantages and disadvantages of each in this table right here. So the advantages of offsite printing of your hardcover are that the printing cost per book is substantially lower. It's a lot lower, and the more copies you purchase in bulk, the lower the printing cost per book will be. And because that's much lower, this would allow you to offer your hardcover for a much lower sales price in places like Amazon, which of course might make it more appealing to potential buyers. And the lower cost will of course increase your profit margin as well. Another big advantage is the quality, because offsite printers tend to have more choices in terms of quality paper and colors. However, the disadvantages are that you have lots of upfront costs, which of course is quite risky because the selling of your printed copies is not guaranteed. And you also have additional costs that many often forget about. For example, there is the cost of storage for your inventory, keeping track of your inventory, and being responsible for the shipping and handling of your book. Now, the advantages and disadvantages of print on demand are somewhat reversed. Here, our advantage is that we essentially don't have to take on any risk because we don't have any or very few upfront costs, and we don't have to worry about storage of our inventory or about the shipping and handling. And the disadvantage here is that the printing costs for our hardcover are much higher. And so our pricing of our book might not be as comparable or compatible as we wish it to be. And the profit margin is quite low. Now that we have looked at the advantages and disadvantages of each of our hardcover options, let's look at what service you might want to consider for your print-on-demand needs. I already mentioned that I personally recommend using Pod over Offsite Printing, especially if this is your very first children's book. Amazon just recently added the hardcover option to their offered services over on KDP. And because it is still in beta, it still has a few limitations, especially when it comes to children's books. The main ones being that it has a very limited number of trim sizes. My preferred size for my own children's books is the 8.5 by 8.5 inches square format, which is not included just yet. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will be added soon. And the second main limitation is that KDP's hardcovers still require a minimum of 76 pages, and that's just too high for most children's books for younger kids. So since KDP is still quite limited when it comes to hardcover options, what pod service should we use? Here we again have multiple options, the most common ones being Lulu and Ingramspark. I usually recommend and personally use Ingramspark for my hardcovers, and there are a number of reasons and a number of advantages to using Ingramspark. The first big advantage would be that Ingramspark offers far more trim size choices for books with full color interior. The second big advantage is the lower printing costs with Ingramspark. While Lulu and Ingramspark have similar prices for black and white books, the price difference is quite significant for full color hardcovers. The quality is usually what I look at and compare next. And the quality of the hardback is about the same for both pods, including the colors, since Lulu uses a combination of its own printers and those of Ingram for books that go through Ingram's distribution channel. And the fourth factor we should consider is the distribution channel and the distribution cost. Ingramspark has a direct link to one of the largest distribution networks, which is Ingram. And because Lulu partners with Ingram for its distribution, you're more likely to get slightly more in compensation per illustrated book with Ingramspark because you aren't going through a middleman like Lulu. The only disadvantage to using Ingramspark is that it has an initial setup fee and there is a revision fee for each revised content upload. But again, these are just setup fees and usually not recurring unless you have to make a revision. So when dealing with pod platforms, these are the three most important factors to consider as a children's book author: the available trim size options, the print quality, and the ease and cost of distribution. For children's book authors who want to publish a full color hardcover book, I recommend Ingramspark, especially if you wish to sell your book outside of Amazon as well. And once Amazon has more hardcover options, I'm sure I will start using them for my hardcover options as well for my sales on Amazon. For any of my hardcover book sales outside of Amazon, I will still use Ingramspark because of its great distribution via Ingram. But how do we get our children's book hardcovers onto Amazon? The beauty of using Ingramspark for our hardcover is that it will automatically appear on Amazon a few days after you have approved its publication. To ensure that all three of your book's formats are linked right away so they all appear on one single sales page on Amazon, you can simply wait a few days because this should happen automatically as long as your title, your subtitle, and your author name are exactly the same for each of these formats. If you want to speed up this process, you can reach out to Amazon directly and request the linking. Before you do, be sure to first claim your book over on Amazon's Author Central account. And to request the linking of your different book formats, go to your Author Central account, scroll all the way to the bottom and click on the contact form. In the drop-down menu, click on Amazon's book page and then on linking print and Kindle editions. If you then click on send us an email, you can simply share the title of your book and each format's ISBN. So for example, in order to have all three formats of the book My Super Me linked, I would write something like this: Dear Amazon team, please link the following: title, paper ISBN, hardcover ISBN, ebook ASIN. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic remaining day. Warmly, and then you would enter your name here. And this will take care of the linking of all the formats of your book. Amazon updates its interface quite often, so if you don't see these buttons with the exact same wording, just get a bit adventurous and try clicking on different things to reveal the different drop-down items. I've also added the direct link to the description below this video. Now here are 3 quick tips you might find helpful when it comes to hardcovers. First, if you're planning to offer a hardcover option for your beautiful children's book later on, make sure that whatever book size you are choosing is available both on KDP as well as Ingramspark. That's because you wouldn't want to have to reformat your book for a different trim size. Second, as I've shared in my separate video that was all about the how-tos when it comes to ISBNs for our children's books, each printed format will have to have its own ISBN. I will be sure to link to that video below. So if you are offering a paperback and hardcover of your book, you will need 2 separate ISBNs. And third, make sure all 3 formats of your book are linked so they all appear on one single sales page on Amazon. And for that, they all have to have the exact same title, subtitle, and author name. Writing a children's book is so very special, so I hope that once you're ready to take the next step of creating a hardcover for your beautiful story, this video will help and support you. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. Here's to your very own hardcover version of your children's book. Bye!